Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Engineering Quality, the podcast where we get real about testing, leadership, and building software that actually works for everyone. I'm Veronika.
Hi everyone, I'm Royalee.
And I'm Ellie. And today's episode is one that I have been really looking forward to. We are diving into developer experience, well-being, and how they connect directly to software quality and team performance. Our guest today is right at those intersections. We are so excited to welcome Ashley Hunsberger, a longtime quality advocate, conference speaker, conference organizer, community builder, who has helped teams rethink what quality really means, not just in code, but in culture as well. Ashley's passion is helping people and teams thrive by centering our human experiences in tech. She served on the Selenium Project Steering Committee and co-chaired the Selenium Conference for several years, where I had the honor of co-hosting one of those with her in Chicago many
Yes.
moons back. Yes, it's been a while. Ashley, you're one of my favorite voices in the software quality space. Welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
I could say the same about you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
That's awesome. We are really glad to hear you here, Ashley. So let's start with something very light.
Okay.
Can you tell us, if you weren't in tech, what would you be doing right now?
I love this question. It was actually, I'll never forget, I was first getting interviewed to work at Blackboard, like, gosh, back in 2005. And it's the interview question I still remember 20 years later. They asked me this, and I was like, I would be a travel guide. I love Rick Steves. I don't know if you know Rick Steves, like Europe. He has this show on public broadcasting station where he goes around and gives tours and just writes books. Like, I want that life so much. And I was just like, I wish, or Samantha Brown, or any of those that get to do these amazing shows where they're just showing people not just like big sites in cities, but like really getting you in to know the cities and the culture and where to eat and just staying at these little locally owned places. Like I would give anything to have that job.
I love
That's
I love
amazing.
that. Yeah, that is like so exciting. I totally get why you would want to do that. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, you started your career as a manual tester, right? And
Mhm.
eventually you moved into roles like test architect, DevOps engineering leader, and most recently you were the director of developer experience. So, can you tell us a little bit about how did you get here from manual tester to developer experience?
Well, I don't know about anybody else in testing, but for me, it's about helping people. I want people to have a good experience. And I think that, as testers, we're naturally inclined to do that. We want to give people the best software experience possible. And that started evolving a little bit when I got more into being a test architect, designing the test systems that gave developers good experiences, and then realized it's not just about the testing, it's everything else that gives developers good experiences and teams good experiences when you can have those feedback loops. And, I think that that's just how it started evolving is from that idea from as a tester, we're helping people, we give them good experiences and the software that we deliver. And then that just kind of kept changing. Like, I don't know that my perspective changed on quality and testing, but my influence did. And, I think that I started in an age where it was very waterfall. Like we're talking the late 90s, right? And, they're spending maybe even a year building something before you even get to look at it and touch it as a tester. And so seeing that kind of shift, that mentality, oh, we can't spend this long building stuff. Our clients they're going to be using something else by the time we're done, right? Seeing that evolve to earlier and earlier when we kept saying we need this earlier and earlier, we need smaller things. Otherwise, we're going to be testing forever and a day as well. If you took a year building it, we're going to need 2 years to test it. It's never going to happen, right? You
Another
get
2 years to
maybe
fix the issues.
maybe 3 weeks at best, right? So it's just like how like that never changed. That perspective of wanting earlier feedback, getting smaller batches, like that never changed. But it is nice to see the industry having shifted and lived through that shift, right? It's kind of amazing to see what we used to do as testers to where we're at today. And then having that evolution, like getting fast feedback, smaller batches. that's just not limited to testing, right? That's for the whole team. And then how do we build those experiences around that and consider the entire DevOps model? If you're familiar with Dan Ashby's infinity loop of it, right? Like, how do we navigate that? And then being able to start layering in pieces from Lisa and Janet's holistic testing model onto that. And, you know, I really love where we've seen the industry go. And as testers, you know, I think we're just naturally suited to be a huge part of that developer experience, and a huge part of DevOps culture.
Yeah, so that's definitely make a lot of sense considering the world is moving faster. But can we double click a little bit on a developer experience and can you share more around what it actually entails and what value it brings to the organization?
Yeah, I think developer experience is not just the tools. It is what makes us show up and be our best selves at work as developers. Do I have the data to be informed for what I need to change? Do I have the education and training to know about whether it's the tool, the process to get from point A to point B? Do I feel proficient enough to do that? Am I enabled, right? So that a lot of my focus the last 2 years has been around enablement itself. And by that, I mean, you know, one example was, do developers have the training available for GitHub Copilot? Do they have the communities in place to be successful? Because training is not just about go take a course and go be successful. It's about building other methods and giving demos and having not homework, but like, hey, have you tried this thing yet? Making it exciting, having a community of learning. When we can learn together, we learn better. And so making sure we get those things in place, right? To me is developer experience, doing things together and not just worrying about, do I have a tool that I think is going to help me, but not really thinking through the problem I'm trying to solve with that tool. And having the infrastructure and the environments we need to be successful as well. So all of these things combine data, learning and development, tooling, process, environments. We need all of these things working together to consider our experience as well.
That's great. And I love how you say, you know, that it's more than just the tools. I suppose when we used to think about developer experience, it used to be like, you know, do they have the tools they need? Now there is so
Yeah,
many tools out there.
right.
And they might have the right tools, but they might not know
Yeah,
how they might know how to use them at a
yeah,
basic level, but not really.
yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what I found. Like we did a developer experience survey, and when I asked about not just tooling satisfaction, but do you have proficiency in the tools you use? And it's usually, yes, they have proficiency in the CI/CD tooling, but when you get to security tools, when you get to testing tools, when you look at these other layers, there's a surprising gap that, or maybe not surprising, right? But hey, we might want to shore up here and make
Yeah.
sure that we're taking time to develop our engineers in a way that they are also proficient and not just like, oh, here's a tool, go use it that we've recommended.
And what is the difference that you've seen once you are able to provide the training or the coaching or whatever it is that they need to be able to use those tools? How has that shifted how the teams work?
Our latest example with GitHub Copilot, being able to hold those sessions, all of a sudden I get comments from developers, I never knew I could use it like this. It's so nice to see how other people are using it in action, not just from, because I don't just do the vendors, right? They're there to help answer questions. I have engineers, or I've had engineers come in and give live demos of how they're using it in their specific context. So they can say, oh, okay, maybe I'm working on a different project, but we're looking at, you know, my company stuff. So now I can take that and apply it. And then when they see that they can do these things, you get this idea of what's called self efficacy. And these little bits of self efficacy. And self efficacy is like, you know, you can do a thing because you've done a thing. And even you don't know how to do something, you know that you have built success on all these other little things that you've accomplished along the way. And when we get self efficacy, we get confidence. When we get
Yes.
confidence, we're able to do the thing, right? And maybe we don't know how to do it yet, but we're confident in our ability to figure it out. And I think that's huge in teams.
It really
That's a
is.
big dynamic I've seen change.
Yeah, I love that. And I do love your, in your career progression. Like you said, I think as testers, we do have that instinct already of trying to make things better for the user, instinctively really
Yeah.
trying to make it better for the engineers as well. And I wonder though, for people that might be considering a transition in their careers as well, like from, a testing, a quality engineering role around those lines and moving into an advocacy role for engineers. What advice would you have to share with them and on how to go about that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think career shifts are normal. I have like the weirdest career path sometimes. I think to me it's a natural evolution, but when I look at like my little dates around, it's like, what did you do with your life? I'm like, I don't know, still figuring it out. It's fine. It is okay, by the way, to not know what you want to do with your life. Like, I just want to make it clear, it is fine to collect a paycheck and pay your bills and call it that. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I do think when you're thinking about a career transition, there's a concept I learned in grad school called job crafting. And to me, that's helped me shape my own career and figure out what I want to do and where I want to head. And you need to look at what are your values, understand what you value, get it down to like your top three. Because if you value everything, you value nothing. It's kind of like you have a million priorities, you have no priorities. But
Yeah.
what are your top values? Mine are people and helping others, right? And connecting with people. What are my strengths? And I want to delineate there's things that we can be good at, but they might not necessarily come naturally. There are things I am good at, but I have worked very hard at being good at them, like execution. Terrible at execution, great at ideas. I hate executing, right? But I can't. So think about like your values, your strengths. And I don't know if you're familiar with Clifton Strengths, but that is a really great
Yes.
kind of self-assessment where you can learn more about yourself. Highly recommend it. That helped me figure out what mine are positivity, developing others. I forget growth, like all of these other things. I was like, oh, yep, yep. Very much confirmation bias sitting there, but that's okay. And then you need to understand what relationships do you need if it's whether it's a new role or whether the job that you're in, what relationships do you need to be successful in that role or who are you currently working with? Who might you need to work with to be successful there? And then think about if you're still within the same company, a lot of my shifts have come within the same organization at times, especially when I was at Blackboard and I felt like I had 5 different careers there. But like, what does the business need? And or what need do you see that we're not addressing? So how do you start layering all that in? And that's where I feel like I got the most meaning from my career and the ability to make these shifts, like saying, hey, here's me. I love doing this stuff. I value these things. This is what I'm good at, and this is what the business needs. And here's who we need to work with to do it, or who I need to work with to do it. And work with your manager to get it done. Like to me, I mean, you need your manager's support, right? Almost always. Or you'd be like me and apologize later sometimes and just say, oh, I was doing that anyways. It's fine. It's great when you get a manager that gives you a lot of autonomy to just go do the thing and then guide you, redirect you when needed. But sometimes you don't have that. But I think those things, like this idea of job crafting, where we can craft our role, we can think about the things that matter to us. That's where we feel more fulfilled, we feel more engaged, and then we see better outcomes when we can do that.
I love that, Ashley. Thank you. And I love that you showed us how you've gone from manual tester to developer experience and how you've crafted your own role and you've had your manager. But for a lot of people, it is kind of challenging to go ahead and craft, your own role, because even if you have your manager supporting, a lot of times it's difficult to get the
Yeah,
buy-in from
it's
leadership.
hard.
So what advice can you give for others who want to, follow your path and try to carve their own roles?
Ooh, I mean, you got to be bold, right? Like, this is not something, if you're going to carve your own role, it is hard. And it's hard, especially if it's a new role that's coming. So be prepared for that because some people are going to be like, what do you mean developer experience? What do you mean enablement? Be ready to have that elevator pitch to know exactly what you're trying to do. Mine, I think I had landed on, I want to give developers the tools they need to be successful. And by tools, I don't just mean GitHub Copilot. I mean the processes, the environments, right? You have what you need to be successful. And then, you know, just keep trying because it's going to take a few people for it to land. Some people
Yeah.
aren't going to get it. You have to be okay with people that just don't understand it. That's all right. But when you get that sponsor, like really find a sponsor for sure for what that means and to help get you in the right rooms to be like, this is why we need Ashley. This is why we need you here in this room. And they're going to bring you in that room. Easier said than done. But when you get that sponsor, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. How have you gone about finding a sponsor for yourself?
Well, I don't know. I think one of my friends said my biggest strength was humans. I think I just kind of stick with I keep in touch with my network. Like you and I have stayed in touch for a long time, which I'm
Yeah.
really happy about, right? Or even when I met Alan Page, he became a sponsor, right? That came through my network. Like, hey, Janet, can you write a note? Mark, can you write a note? Like, it just depends.
Yeah.
And so it's just how do I get through to people that I think might be good sponsors for my work? I also really try to be very generous with my network and try to connect others, not just for my own benefit, but like, hey, I see you're doing these things. I think you should go talk to this person. I think you'll learn a lot from them. And even if they're just a mentorship, maybe not a sponsorship yet, starting with that mentoring can then lead into sponsoring. And, I just think if we can be generous with our time, generous with our networks, that's how we're going to get people the sponsors they need overall.
That I really do. So if you had to just leave engineering leaders with like one mindset shift about developer and tester experience, what would that be?
I think we kind of touched on it. It's not about tools. It
Right.
is always about people and behavior we want to help shift. It is change management. It is all of these things rooted in deep psychological research that nobody wants to hear about, and that's fine. But every time I come back to it, I'm finding myself reviewing research papers from even as early as the 70s, like psychological safety. We love Amy Edmondson. That started well before she started becoming a researcher in it with, older psychologists like Kahn. And so it's just these things that like the more things change, the more they stay the same over time sometimes. And I think that's one like it is all about human psychology, about our experiences in the workplace. And to me, that is at the root of it. And yes, tools can help, but you have to know what actual human problem you're trying to solve for before you think about the tools that you start layering and applying.
I
That,
love this. I love this kind of marrying two things, right? Like human and
Yeah.
tools, right? Like humans
Yeah.
and computers. Right?
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned psychological safety. And it definitely plays a big role for the team performance. So I'm wondering if you have any practical advice on steps how to build the psychological safety within engineering organizations.
Yeah. Well, let's first talk about, well, what is psychological safety? So I think a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. Some people think I can do anything I want. I can, it's just nobody argues. Nobody gets, that's not psychological safety. Psychological safety is like we feel safe. I hate using the same word in a definition, but it's okay to take risks, right? It's okay to disagree because we know at the end of the day that we're not going to be judged. We're going to be able to move forward and make decisions. I like to think of it as I can be myself. I can raise problems. I can take risks. I can disagree with my team. I can ask questions without feeling like I'm going to be judged or be like, oh, that person doesn't know what they're doing. And I can make mistakes. And I've been on teams that weren't like that. And I've been on teams that I could do those things. And it's night and day, right? And when we have that safety, we're able to learn, we're able to grow together. I think there's definitely research, like even if you raise a ton of risks, the teams that raise those risks make fewer mistakes in the long run, right? So to boil an amazing research paper down to that sentence, right? There's so much more to it. But when we can do all those things, then we have higher performing teams. So that is how I define psychological safety. And like I said, it doesn't mean that you're comfortable, you can do what you want. There's still accountability we have to think about at the end of the day. There's still things that have to get done for the business, and we need to do them, but we can push back. We can say, hey, I don't think we're going to make this date without feeling like we're going to lose our jobs all of a sudden. But here's what you can't just go say, I'm not going to make this date. You have to say, here's why, right? Like explain the reasoning. So that to me is psychological safety. When I think about that safety, the accountability, making sure we're staying in this ability to learn and grow as a team and deliver as well. And so when we have those things, the ways that we can create it, because it's another one of those things. How do I get a safe team? You have to make it a priority, right? You can't just say, go be a psychologically safe team, or we value psychological safety, and do absolutely nothing about it. Reward the behaviors that you see, even if it's just like a verbal confirmation of, hey, I really appreciated that you raised those questions, especially when you're a leader and you can say, hey, thank you for asking those challenging questions. You really made me rethink my position. Even if I didn't change my mind, you're showing the person that you really value. They took the time to do something that can be very scary in front of leadership. So reward that, right? Like, even just say, thank you. Job well done. I love that you did this thing. Facilitate everybody speaking up, I think, is another one where if you are facilitating is a skill and it's a hard skill to learn, and you have to be able to keep an eye out for the quiet people. I know we're going to have introverts. That is fine. But sometimes I used to send notes out to those introverts and say, hey, we're going to be talking about some tough topics. I would really love for you to either send me your opinion so I can voice that and make sure your concerns are heard, or bring that to the call so that they have time to think about it and be willing to speak up in that call, or making sure that we always have those squeaky wheels right in the room. So, or the super exuberant, they love their ideas, they love to share them, and that's great. Glad to have them on the team, but maybe say, hey, okay, so let's give other people a chance before you go on again, or set rules for the meeting, right? Like, if you've spoken up once on a question, make sure everybody has a chance to speak up before you share another idea. Those types of guidelines for the meetings. I think another one is establishing norms for how failure is handled. When people fail, and they will fail, how do you handle it as a team, as a leader? Do you celebrate failures? Like, I love to, even my own self, each week I used to post like a here's how I failed spectacularly this week. Maybe we brought down the system. Maybe we accidentally replied all to like 50,000 people on something. It's happened, right? I think it's good when we can poke fun from it, but also learn from it. Like, I will never do that mistake again. Or if I do, it's genuinely honest mistake. We just make sure people know mistakes are going to happen. We know that we're not perfect, and establish, like, as a team, how are we going to, are we going to celebrate our failures this week? I think making space for new ideas, even the wild ones. One of my favorite things we used to do was the bad idea club. So we would actually make a space for really bad ideas, but then like flip them into really creative ideas moving forward. It's just a weird brainstorming thing that I learned, and I love it because it really makes space for, like, it's we're really going to talk about bad ideas, and I mean terrible ones. But how do we flip it and say, what that might be a really spectacularly awful thing, but what can we do to make that a really cool idea? And I think the other one is people are conflict avoidance. It's perceived as a threat. So when we have a threat, we go into flight, fight, or freeze mode, right? So that's just how our brains operate as humans. So how do we embrace productive conflict? We have to get good at it. We have to have the candor. We have to know that somebody disagreeing with your idea is not an attack on you. It is just exploring the idea and digging deeper. And maybe they just don't either understand your perspective yet, or they see another way that you haven't thought of. And so when we can take that point of view, we can start to embrace that and have productive conversations rather than I used to think it too, right? If they didn't like what I was proposing, they hate me as a person and I don't want to deal with them. That's not what it is. It's protect that idea, go for it, and have those conversations. And even if you don't disagree, be able to get to a spot of consensus at the end of the day, because you can't sit in conflict forever. You might still disagree, but you have to be able to have a consensus, make a decision, and move forward, knowing the risks based on the conversation you had about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a lot.
Well, it
There's
is
more,
it
but,
is a
you
lot,
know,
and it's just like so many
yeah.
very valuable advice that you gave right now. This is amazing. And
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from all of that is that first, it all starts from transparency and trust, right? 'Cause otherwise, you cannot really build safety.
Yeah.
And another thing is power structure shouldn't be playing the role in
Yeah.
which idea is more valuable. This
Mhm.
is something that, well, some teams have been able to accomplish, some do not. And I really love how people processing, how they see the questions about their ideas to be personal attack on themselves, then it's usually
Mhm.
not. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's about idea, right? It's not about
Yeah.
you. And I really love this perspective.
Yeah.
And we all need to keep it in mind when we going
Yeah.
through discussion, through negotiations, through conflict, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
right? It's
And
very
there's
important.
ways to phrase it too, right? Not saying that's a bad idea, but tell me more. How did you arrive at that opinion? Like model that
Yes.
curiosity and be genuinely curious, right? Not just
Right.
to back up your own opinion at some point or try to trick people. Be really curious and be prepared to have your mind change. That's like Laura Hogan. One of my favorite things is be prepared to change your mind. That's one of the best things we can do.
Absolutely, because you might go in thinking it's a bad idea, and once you learn more, you realize, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, this is an excellent idea. And
exactly.
yeah, it can make the difference. And I love how you spoke about not really celebrating, but like highlighting the failures. Because it really shows everyone that we're all humans, right? We all make
Yep,
mistakes. If you make a mistake, or if you have an idea that we don't agree with, or if you say something that within reason, right? You're not going to be punished. You're not going to be blamed. You're not going to be penalized for sharing your opinion in
exactly.
a within
Yeah,
boundaries, right? So I love that. It shows that level of humanness. Like there's not
yes.
a superior complex or whatever.
Yeah,
We're all, humans, and we all make mistakes. We can all ask
yeah,
questions, we can all fail. It happens.
Yeah, the important thing about this, about making mistake, is actually you said it so good that we it's what we are going to do with this mistake after we made it. Are we going to learn from that, or we are going to just keep blaming ourselves about, oh, how could I do
yeah,
this? Why did I do this? Like, I knew better. No, this is not the right way to address. And it's like, it's not healthy for like your own well-being to do that. So
yeah,
it has happened. Yes. Okay. This is the situation. What are we going to do next? How can we prevent it
exactly.
in the future? How can we make sure
Yeah,
that we don't do it again? And also, going a little bit backwards, you mentioned that you have been working on the developer experience program that has been concentrated on the engineer's well-being. Something that really not many companies are investing into. So I'm wondering, what are the outcomes did you see from the approach of this entire program around developer experience, and how it affected maintainability, testing practices, shipping speed, and overall quality of the software that teams were producing?
yeah, that might deserve a book in itself. Yeah, no,
You should write it.
You,
You
you
should
should.
write
You
it.
totally should.
well, it's it's not all that different, right, from what we've read through Google, Project Aristotle, from Amy Edmondson's work. We see the same outcomes. People are able to move faster. They're able to ship faster. As they disagree, they're getting faster feedback loops in, which gives them more feedback. And even if it's not feedback they want to hear, that's fine. Or see, right? By doing those things and being a team that's safe enough to say, okay, let's fix it and move on, or let's fix it so that this also never happens again and move on. So our code becomes more maintainable. Our testing practices start to take root in teams. We're seeing faster feedback loops that earlier parts in the pipeline. When you get that, you naturally get faster. It might feel slow as you're building them out, but you start to see faster shipping speeds and time to delivery. And then, of course, overall quality comes up. Like when we did this with Blackboard. Like we saw criticals and highs drop significantly where we were really left with like medium and low bugs, right? It's client reported ones. So how many escaped ones? You're going to always have bugs in production, but how many are we seeing that are critical showstoppers now versus what we used to see before we had these mechanisms in place? And yes, even though I focus on like psychological safety and developer well-being, it was all in the spirit of being able to guide change management through these processes and these tooling adoptions to get there. And so you have that trust. And I think Anne Marie Shara has an amazing talk at Moving at the Speed of Trust. Highly recommend talking with her about this as well. Like you can't move and deliver if you don't have trust in your teams. And you get trust by building psychological safety and by focusing on humans and not necessarily just the day-to-day code in your backlog at work.
Yeah.
I agree. And I was gonna say, Ashley, that like we know how important and how impactful it is having developer experience. What are ways that you actually have, like the C-suite see the value? Is it through like you mentioned surveys? Because I know it's valuable, right? I can see where every organization can benefit. Like even some of the things that you
Yeah.
explained with devs not knowing how they can use certain tools to improve their workflows, improve their day to day, just be even beyond the tools, right? Just like advocating for
Yeah.
different things. How can you show the value to, senior leaders?
Well, it's always a struggle. I think I still
I
struggle with
bet.
this one. But what I've centered on is, surveys are still going to be your most powerful tool, I think. You have to be able to construct them well. And that takes time. But when you get the information, when you clean the data, when you take a real scientific approach to it, we don't do surveys to just say, okay, we got this information and we're not going to do anything with it. What you want to do is tie it to outcomes. You don't just want to know what is your tooling satisfaction. You really want somebody that can tie, okay, let's look at all these aspects of what makes up developer experience. Let's define it how we define it as a company. And that might change organization to organization, be able to measure those concepts, but then say, what outcomes do we care about? And can we tie correlations from developer experience to those outcomes? So whether it's individual, team, or organization level outcomes, are we able to ship faster? And do I like the quality of my team's code? Are we hitting the DORA metrics of like mean time to recover? All of these outcomes that we see, can we find correlations based on an overall developer experience score or metric that we've defined and measured? And when we can show those correlations, we can say, hey, if we see improvement in this area, whether it's continuous delivery or environments or tooling or process satisfaction, do we also see an improvement on these scores? And we can isolate that. Statistics is a thing, right? We can show statistically build models and predictive models on this. And when we can start speaking that language, if we improve this area, we will see gains here. And this is what that actually means for the business in terms of money and time. That's what, executives will speak. And then we can say, and by the way, here's the backlog we now have that we found these things where we're lower in tooling satisfaction or tooling knowledge and proficiency. Maybe we're lower in continuous delivery practices, or maybe we're lower in testing practices. If we can build our backlog based on those things and show them over time, we're starting to see these outcomes improve. And we're starting to see faster delivery. We're starting to see more confidence in our code. And all of that leads to these higher organization benefits. You can do it. It just is hard. It is not it's not as easy as people think. And you have to get baselines. That is also the hardest part. Nobody wants to take time to get baselines. They just say they want to improve, and then they don't want to take time to go, they will. They say they will because you need to, because how do you know what you improved on? But it's
You
just
have
like,
to know where
yeah,
you're
you
starting
might.
from.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so true. We've had, several guests on the podcast, and we've asked similar questions based on different roles and different topics. And the recurring theme that I've seen is you have to have the data, and the data has to tie into the money and the time. Like you have to be able to show the business how we're saving you
Yeah,
money.
exactly. Or even like GitHub Copilot, there's so many metrics you can gather, but at the end of the day, what is the return on investment? That's what they want to know. What is my return on
Yeah.
investment? And if it means that you are saving an engineer a day a week or more because you enabled them with AI, let's break down the costs. How much did you spend on those licenses? How much is it costing you overall? And then how much time? If we're saving that much time to free up developers to do other things, great. Let's
It's a win-win.
quantify that. So
That is awesome. Thank you, Ashley. This has
yeah,
been such an insightful and energizing conversation, and we've learned so much. You've shared so many valuable tips with us, especially around psychological safety. There's so much information that you gave us that everyone needs to hear, and so thank you so much for joining us and for
thank
sharing
you
your
for having
perspective.
me.
You're welcome. But before we let you go, we like to do a quick, what we call like a rapid fire round at the end. So I am gonna ask you
Ooh.
5 short questions just to
Oh
help our
God.
listeners get
Okay.
to know you better. And it's like fun, light questions. So nothing too deep. So are you ready? All right. So the first question is Coke or Pepsi?
Coke. Coke Zero.
Sushi or taco?
Oh, tacos. So it's a very close one.
Yeah. What about a hotel or an Airbnb?
If budget's no issue, hotel.
I agree. Okay. Theme park or spa day?
Day now that I'm older and don't love roller coasters as much as I used to.
And then the last one, are you into the big picture or into the details?
Big picture,
Hmm.
easily.
I
I'm a
love
big picture strategist, and like I said, execution, not I can do it. It is not my favorite thing to do and get in the details and do the thing.
I think that's why also we've had so many good conversations, Ashley, because I'm exactly the opposite. Like the big picture just hurts my brain. I need like tiny, tiny pieces of things to execute. And if I don't have all of that big theme broken down, like I can never get to
Yeah,
it. So I love that. So
yeah.
before we go and wrap up, just where can our listeners connect with you, follow your work, and learn more about all these topics that we talked about today?
Let's see. You can go definitely follow Lisa Crispin on her blog. I'll have to drop a link for that because I can't remember at the top of my head.
Yeah, we'll add it.
Look up Amy Edmondson, Adam Grant, and Brene Brown. Those are like the 3 top people I would follow in terms of work psychology. And, you know, uh, Brene talks a lot about not job crafting, but especially the values and being able to identify that. Amy Edmondson, especially around psychological safety, what she's most known for, right? And then Adam Grant, I believe in hidden potential. There's a lot that we can learn from human characteristics from his book called Hidden Potential. But he's a great organizational psychologist, has a lot of amazing research out there as well. And I just can't recommend the 3 of their stuff enough.
What about you? How can we connect with you out there?
LinkedIn is the best way right now. I'm off Twitter permanently now. So LinkedIn for sure. I think I'm A Hunsberger. We'll put that in. We'll correct it. I'm probably wrong. I'm on Blue Sky a little bit, but really just more for the conference scene, for when we need to share stuff out quickly. But really LinkedIn, connect with me there. Happy to connect and say how you know me because sometimes I just gloss over if it's a sales pitch or something. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley.
yeah, thank you.
We will put the links that you mentioned in the show notes so
Perfect.
our listeners can have ability to follow your recommendations
Thank
for
you.
the authors that you mentioned and also connect with you on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for being with us today here and all your valuable insights that you shared. It was awesome.
You're so welcome. I loved it.
Thank you so much. Bye.
So much, Ashley.
Bye.
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 All right. So that's a wrap for today's episode. It was so great having Ashley on. She reminded us that developer experience isn't just about tooling. It's really about creating the environments where people can thrive and the safety, right? Where people can thrive to do their best work.
Yes, that's so true, really. And her story is such a great reminder that quality and well-being go really hand in hand. That when teams feel safe and supported, that great software really flows. And I loved also that she talked about job crafting. We touched on so many important topics, especially in this day and age where there is so many layoffs out there. So we covered a ton of very exciting things.
Yes, I totally agree with all of that. And also, I really love that we touched on the concept of psychological safety. She did say very well that like it has been an old concept, and psychological safety gaining more traction right now. And this is amazing that it's being brought to the surface finally, and we are talking about that. This is very important. Trust and safety in workplace where like you can express your thoughts and not being penalized for that. This is a lot, and it's kind of like a gym job, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yes. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone who is passionate about quality and building great engineering cultures as we are. Follow us on where you get your podcasts. So our podcast is called Engineering Quality. Visit us at engineeringqualitypodcast.com website. Check out our YouTube channel at Engineering Quality for full video episodes. And now, until next time, bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.